Hey everyone, welcome to my show. Let's go there. It's another Tuesday night, and I have a good guest. Listen, it's my good friend, my new friend, Cheryl Nembhard. She is from here, from Toronto, and we're gonna get real. When I say real, we're gonna get real. And I love a woman that can just keep it 100 and real, because that's what I'm all about. I don't do fake. I don't know about you. Do you do fake? Because I cannot do fake friends, fake anything. I like to keep it real. And so at this moment, I'm going to just call on my friend Cheryl to come in the show. Hey, how's it going?
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be here. Chantal, I love that. I always say I'm allergic to fake. So I'm
Yes. I agree. And we had coffee this week. Oh girl, it was good. So we're gonna go back over some things and just overflow, because it was just we didn't have enough time.
no,
Like
there's never enough time.
never enough time. We need to start earlier to just to talk and just catch up. And so let people know, who are you? What do you do for work, for ministry?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be with you in your space, in your home.
Thank you.
This is gonna be like a coffee chat, and y'all just get to listen
Yes.
in to all the nitty and the gritty. So my name is Cheryl Nembhard. Gosh, I think I want to lead with just I'm a poster child of God's grace.
Mm.
I think I want to start on that humble note. Like if
Mm.
there was someone that could have been counted out, it was me. If there was someone that shouldn't have made it, it was me. If there's someone that shouldn't be where they are, that's me. And so it is the grace of God.
Mm.
When I sum up my life, because I'm a multi hyphenate, and sometimes multi hyphenates can get misunderstood, because it's like, well,
Mm.
pick one thing, and it's like God didn't mantle me that way. He's actually called me to
Mm.
multiple things. And so I always sum it up
Mm.
by saying, I speak, I create, I advocate. On
Great.
right, six words: I speak, I create, I advocate. On the speaking side, I'm an itinerant speaker. I co-host a national television show called See Her Love. It's like The
Mm.
View, but faith-based for people that need context. I have my own podcast. I have two podcasts. One is a long form interview called On the Path with Cheryl Nembhard. And
Mm.
we're in our fourth season, and that got picked up as its own national show. And that was last year. So,
Great.
yeah, so I'm in season 2 with that on Yes TV, and it streams 24 hours at a website called intothecastle.com. And then I also have another podcast, My Baby. It's a short uh, affirmations and scripture podcast. It's a pick me up.
Mm.
It's called Soul Food to Go. Get it? Soul Food.
Love it.
10 minutes or less, and it's all grounded in Psalms, the book of Psalms, and
Mm.
it's set to like lo-fi chill music, sounds of nature. It's just like hearing scripture and like a thought to anchor to start your day.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And then on the advocating side, I'm the director of Women Speaker Collective. It's a global organization of female communicators and leaders that I get to serve. It's a privilege. I'm on the board for Brave Global Canada and Brave Global, which is
Mm.
a organization for at-risk girls. It's an anti-sex trafficking organization, and we help
Mm.
grooming of girls ages 12 to 18. And there's a ton of other stuff I do, but we'll just leave it at that.
Love your resume, love your experience. And so, you're a speaker, you're creative, and you know how important stories are.
Yeah.
Just and so why is it important to share your story with
Mm,
people?
mm. I feel like, I think about I think about the woman at the well, the woman of
Mm.
Samaria, and how important it is sometimes, being the embodiment of God's deliverance and healing is like the most powerful thing. We can speak about stuff and we can be
Mhm.
good with words, but when you can say, this is what he's done for me,
Mm.
this is who I was, and this is where I was going, and this is what has happened to me, and people can mark that in your life, it is
Mm.
so powerful. Jesus was the best storyteller. He used
Oh.
story to communicate truths and lessons to help bring the kingdom down in a practical way for people to understand. Story is the platform. It's the way, even as a culture, coming from the African diaspora, we communicate
Mhm.
through story. We sung through story. We gave instruction,
Mhm.
legacy, wisdom through story so that it would be remembered, so that it would stick. Story has a way of staying with people. And when they
Mm.
can't recall a scripture, they can remember a story. And so
Wow.
that's one of the reasons why I'm never ashamed. And also the Bible says that I overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the power of my
Yes.
testimony. And so sharing your story is another way of giving the devil a black eye.
I love it. Yes. And so, many, many years ago, we crossed paths. The first time I ever met you in person,
Yeah.
I was at a women's conference
Right.
at your now church.
Yeah.
And I got to hear a little bit of your story, and I was so impacted and taken back, um, connected in a way. And I just want you to share a little bit of your story of being sexually abused in your teens,
Mhm.
and just can you walk us a little bit through that story? Or not, I want to say story, experience.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because as you said, it's already, I know, triggering for some. And so I always just say, just a trigger
Yeah.
warning for people who have lived this out. It's, sometimes hard to hear. And
Yeah.
if I could have changed it, I really wish that I could say that I was sexually abused as a teen. Unfortunately, I was sexually abused as a child. Um,
Wow.
and so that started for me from the age of 5 right through to the age of
Wow.
12. And what was a huge devastating pain point has really become part of the platform God's called me to. My
Mhm.
abuser was also my Sunday school teacher. And so I fully understand when people say, I am done with Christianity, I want nothing
Wow.
to do with the church hurt me. I could say, ooh, sis, bro, the church hurt me
Mhm.
too. I was placed in the hands of people that should have loved and cared for me, and they did nothing but abuse me violently. And so I understand that pain. At the age of 11 and a half, I finally summed up because it was just too much. It was way too much.
Mhm.
In the West Indian community, everyone's your aunt, everyone's your uncle. For babysitters, sometimes you end up sleeping over at your babysitter. It's just a different situation. And my mom was a single mom, worked
Mhm.
in the hospital, hardworking nurse, worked double shifts sometimes. So that just meant
Mhm.
she wasn't home. And so I, would stay there many times. And I summed up the nerve at 11 and a half to tell her what was going on. I literally, now I have language, can say that I had
Mhm.
a nervous breakdown. I had a actual breakdown when we were getting dressed to go, kind of middle of the night, and I just started to hyperventilate and literally have a breakdown. I did not want to go. And when I summed up the nerve to tell her what happened next, I now understand why. When we look at things like the movement, like Me Too movement, and
Yeah.
why that has traction and why that's taken off, it's because the I always say when I speak and I lead with this, what's worse than sexual
Mm.
assault? What's worse than sexual molestation and abuse? It's not being believed.
Wow.
It's not being believed. It's like almost like reliving that betrayal on top of the pain is
Mhm.
just a wound that only a few can understand. And so
Mm.
my mom did not believe me, and I was told I was a liar. In fact, my mom brought me before my offenders and told them what I had said. And so you will never know I'm going to just be real, the hell that I went
Yeah.
through, that a child would go through when your offender who has drilled you with fear, intimidation, threats of violence finds out that you have told on them. And then she left me with them. It's like, listen to the lies that this girl said about you, and da 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 da. And I got beat. I got punished for so-called lying, and then
Mhm.
left to the wolves. So that really messed me up. Um,
Yeah.
and pain left unchecked, pain left unresolved, unworked through, it morphs into anger.
Wow.
And when you don't do the work, anger can morph into bitterness, like this root of
Mhm.
bitterness. So I became an angry, bitter teen. I just wanted to hurt people. And it is true, the old adage that hurt people. And so with that
Mhm.
hurt, not having anywhere to talk about it, it being this horrible, dirty, filthy secret, I was just
Mhm.
acting out, and I always say this to parents at this point, believe them, believe your children.
Mhm.
There is no child that in their darkest imagination would create that lie to say this
Mhm.
person touched me that this happened. They made me touch this or whatever. There's no
Mhm.
way that they can get context to bring that in. So follow that rabbit hole, believe them. And
Mm.
I was not believed. And so I ended up lashing out and acting out, and I ended up joining a gang and gang bang for about
Mm.
3 years, and just was a bully, a horrible bully at school, and have met people that I've bullied in my ministry. So that's been a
Wow.
it's been a moment. You try to be at the altar to pray for do an altar call for prayer, and then have someone that you bullied come up,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And yeah, so I just unfortunately, some members of the gang turned on me, and I ended up unfortunately suffering a sexual assault by multiple members of the gang that I was rolling with, and so that caused me to snap. I literally lost it, and my mom found me. I was, bleeding profusely. I was in a fetal position, and I was in lived in North York. She took me to a local hospital called
Yeah.
North York General,
Yeah.
and and did again the ultimate wound. You know, you're so loose. I can't believe you bring shame to the family. I can't. I didn't raise you this way, and that you give yourself away, and this all horrible things again. Because some parents, it's too hard to accept the
Yeah.
reality that your daughter's broken, your child is broken, because it reflects on them. There's this twisted West Indian
Yeah.
mentality that they feel that they failed or they're flawed. They don't want to accept that. And at 16, I just couldn't take anymore. I didn't care about how I lived or died. I didn't care about myself. I was self-harming. I had crazy wild thoughts of ending my life, and I ended up just living on and off the street, running away from home, and just for 3 years I just was gone. It was such a dark hole, and I was witnessed to, met by a street evangelist, uh,
Mm.
who we would now call sort of an urban missionary,
Mhm.
um, who shared the love of God with me and never gave up for months and months. And finally, here I am. Yeah.
Wow. Like, I did not know your full story, and I'm just blown away of your resilience.
Mm.
That look what you're doing now. Obviously, you can see in retrospect where God has called you. And did you know at a young age that you had a call on your life, even though all these crazy traumatic events, triggering events happened to you? Like, did you see a way out? Because I can't imagine from 5, 11, 16,
Mm.
experiencing all that stuff, thinking, is there a future for me?
Yeah.
Why would someone treat me this way? Do I have worth? Like, what do I look like?
Mm. I didn't connect the dots that way, and I'm going to be really honest. I thought I was cursed.
Wow.
I thought that God didn't love me. I thought God was horrible, cruel, mean. And this is the unfortunate reality of so many people today. They equate God to the experience they've had with God's people.
Wow.
And so they look at God through that lens of pain and betrayal
Mm.
and all the things and abuse. And they just walk away from the entire relationship with God. When the reality is that those people never represented God in the first place, have nothing to do with
Mm.
him. Their actions are so far from his heart. And so then I was in a hate. I'd love to dress it up. I hated God with a passion
Mm.
because of
Mhm.
what I felt God had allowed or
Mhm.
done. It was very wrong and very warped. It wasn't until I gave my heart to God at 19, one Sunday night, finally, after all of the witnessing. And I want to say this too, the person that reached me, I feel like I just need to say this for someone. They never brought out a Bible verse for 3 months. They never brought out a
Wow.
Bible. I didn't even know if they served. I didn't know what their religion was. Nothing.
Mm.
They
Mm.
didn't wear it on their sleeve. They didn't hit me with it over the head. They didn't preach at me. They loved me well.
Mm.
They loved me well. They listened and they loved me, and they spoke worth and value into me. And I feel like so many times we miss the mark because we want to preach at people rather than
Mm.
um, being the preached word to people, you know. Uh,
Powerful.
yeah, being the gospel and loving
Mm.
first, you know. Jesus fed
Mm.
the people before he even spoke. He met their needs, he healed them. Whatever
Mm.
you have need of, he met those needs and then presented the gospel. And so I that's what happened. And one Sunday night, I finally wanted to see what this whole God thing was all about, and went in a rickety old van that really shouldn't be on the road, a church van, and that day there was a prostitute, and there was a transvestite, like a person that was in sort of a drag at the time, and
Yeah.
it was just a circus. It was a circus going to town. And I'm so glad that on that youth night, it was like a youth night, a more casual night service, that
Mm.
I was met on the other side with welcome, because it could have gone really
Mm.
wrong. And there's so many
Mm.
churches that would have snubbed their nose at us. I didn't have the right clothes. I was buzzed and all kinds of colors in my hair. I had the shortest, most inappropriate, outfit on, and I
Mm.
was messed up. Obviously, like, just I had a lot of drug, alcohol addiction problems at the time, and I
Mm.
was pretty high. And so it was just, it was love. It was love that
Mm.
welcomed me. It was God's love that found me. And that night, in the middle of his sermon, the pastor, my very first pastor of my very first church at the time, um, he just he just paused and said, there's someone here, and just I need everyone to pray, and then just went through like the grocery list of my life. And
Wow.
yeah, and so that was powerful. It was a prophetic moment. And one of the things that the street evangelist would always say when he was getting ready to leave, he was like, "Okay, Cheryl, I'm going. Do you want another hot chocolate, donut?" It was always like a coffee shop kind of hang, and
Mhm.
$20 or whatever. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And he would say, "Remember." And I was like, I know, I know. Yeah, I can run, but I can't hide from God's love. Whatever.
Mhm.
Dismiss. And that night, they were praying for what felt like almost an hour plus, and people were pressuring him to move on because nothing was happening, and he was
Mhm.
not moving from that moment. He was like, he's like, I see. He just started to cry. He was like, I see you. I see you as a child. I see the abuse. I see the violence. I see the, he says, I see abortions. I see drug. Like, he just went through. He said, I see the streets. He's like, my Lord, uh, God has a call for your life. And that was the very first time, to answer your question, that I even equated the,
Mm.
the possibility that there was another life for me. And he was like, what
Mm.
you've gone through, he said, you will use as a testimony. Thousands will know Jesus, will come closer to Jesus because of your ministry. I don't know who I'm speaking to. He says,
Mm.
this is not, I can't let this go. This person is a world changer. It's like just talking about the level, the global call on my life. I sat
Mm.
there not thinking it was me at all. And then he turned to me, finally getting this like specific download, because he was already flowing in the spirit.
Yeah.
And he said, You. And he pointed right at me. And so many people to this day talk about this, that I'm still friends with,
Wow.
from my old church. He says,
Mm.
I don't know who you are, and I don't know your whole story, but I just feel burdened by God, like it prompted by God to tell you that you can run, but you can't hide from God's love. And that is the very sign off goodbye that I had gotten every single time for months from that street evangelist. So
Wow.
yeah, that moment I knew that God was speaking to me directly, and I ran to that altar. And let me tell you, I cried during he preached the word. I cried. They saw the choir came up and sang. I cried. We were in a church gym in Scarborough, in
Mm.
Court. They packed up Alexandria Public School. They packed up the church. I cried. They cried, and people were like trying to move me because they felt I was being disruptive or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget this. He said, "You leave her. Don't you touch her. You have no idea where she's come from and what God's doing right now. And you have no idea that what those tears are cleansing and healing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow, goosebumps. Like, wow. Man, so many people want to be seen.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's not enough people that speak into people's life with positivity, affirmations. And I think that's so great, the podcast that you have, because I think we need to hear more of that. So many negativity on comments on social media. People are always trying to shade people or call them out or gossip. And to have that experience, I think it is life altering. And I think we as women need to do that for other women or even for our own kind, our own people, and for our kids. It's so important. And so I think that's very, very significant that God would use words, aligning confirmation through word
Yeah.
with the street evangelist and the pastor, that even so you can see that God was speaking directly to you. And I think so many people feel like God has not seen them nor heard them,
Mm,
nor people are and I hate this one thing I hate the devil does.
mm,
Something that you think a lie of yourself or insecurity of yourself, and when someone confirms it almost by saying the same insecurity or negativity, you feel like it's confirmation and you
mm.
take it as truth when it's really a lie from the pit of hell,
That's
from the enemy. And I think sometimes we don't hear enough good about ourselves. You
right.
know, when there's songs being created about women, social media, even movies, but we as Christians or we as even humans could do a better job of really being uplifting, positive to other people. And I think that you are a testament
Mm,
of that. And thank you for sharing. I cannot imagine
yeah.
getting arrested by God, that's and having that past that you've had.
That's a good word. That's what it felt like. Yeah.
He arrested your heart.
Yeah.
He changed your life around.
Yeah.
What did that change look like from
Mm,
that moment? Was it, we now know the word sanctification process.
mm,
What did that now new journey look like from that moment?
mm. Yeah, I love that question because there's we need to we need to be there's this phrase of being too heavenly minded that we're not any earthly good. And
I do,
sometimes
yeah.
as Christians we get so lofty in our language and stuff that it's
Mhm.
hard for people to just reach and understand, or that they feel they can live up to it. And the truth is, everything about Jesus was condescending. He came down to our level. He always sat with the least. He sat with the marginalized. It was never us reaching for him. It was always him reaching for us. And
Mhm.
and I say that because yes, there was this absolute transformational spiritual encounter moment that happened in my life. I can say that the moment that I accepted Jesus into my life, all of my addictions, like it literally, he dealt with them. I had
Mhm.
a couple of nights that I was, immediately was allowed to stay at a church mother's home because I was not at my home. I had run away, and I was, as I said, on and off the street, and they prayed with me and fed me, and I literally sweated it out, screamed it out, like just was going
Mhm.
through just detox. And
Mhm.
God literally met me in that room. It was supernatural encounter, and my heart was changed. My mind was changed. It felt like an absolute transfusion. This great exchange that happened in my
Mhm.
life. So that's the spiritual stuff. But when you come out of that big, huge come to Jesus moment,
Yeah.
there's the living,
Yeah.
and there's the day to day living. And for me, change looked like unlearning something.
Hmm.
It looked like
Mhm.
refusing some things, and the unlearning and refusing was what has happened to me is not who I am.
Yeah.
What has happened to me, all of the darkness, all of the abuse, being treated like trash by many people, being abused, and everyone's punching bag, including my own mom's. Just what has happened to you is not who you are. I had to shake the lies, as you said so perfectly, Chantal, the
Mhm.
lies of the enemy. I had to refuse them. I had to cancel them off of my life. And it looked like unlearning all of that stuff and finally stepping into this knowledge of like,
Mhm.
God, who do you say I am? Like,
Oh, that's good.
how do you see me? I have been told I'm not worth this, that I'm only good for that, that I'm, it's
Mm,
just horrible, disgrace, disgusting things. Who do you say
mm,
I am? I went into the
mm,
word and I started to read about my identity and my
mm,
purpose and my value, and that changed my life. And then it looked like unlearning, it looked like refusing lies, but it also looked like separation. My change looked like
yeah,
separation. I had to make a decision to walk away from toxic patterns and people and addictive
yeah.
personalities within myself. I had to separate myself from
Mm,
the things that were not serving me, the things that were holding me back, the things that the enemy loved to hold over me. I had to
mm,
walk away. It was some things were very easy to do and some were not. And, to this day, there's still a separation that God calls me to. And
mm,
you and I too, all of us too, as we
mhm.
continue to evolve and as we shed, think of an onion, as we're shedding the layers of all the things of the
Mm,
toxicity, of the negativity, of the flesh, of all the things that are just not God's heart for us, as we're stepping in
mm,
to who he's designed us to be. That may mean unlearning ways from wrong ways of being brought
yeah,
up in church, wrong
yeah,
theology. It may be abusiveness or whatever, dependency,
mm,
just whatever. And it could be separating, where you have to say to people that you love, I can't, I need to take a beat. I can't do this journey with you. I love you. I'm praying for you, but this is holding me back. This is um this is feeding the worst parts of me. I don't like who I am when I'm in this relationship. So
healthy boundaries,
there's that word.
which can also hurt people, but it's not for to hurt people, but it's out of really love and respect for yourself first.
Yeah.
And we can go. I don't really want to go too deep in talking about boundaries, but I think we talk about boundaries, but it can also be a hurtful process and a lonely process of
Yeah.
that shedding, of setting up those boundaries for
Mm.
people for your own mental and emotional health.
Yeah.
And it's a journey to walk through yourself, even like, are you sure that I did the right thing? But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
um, most of the time it's best for the person to do that so they can move forward.
Yeah.
And the call that God has on your life, you can be in a better place, a
Yeah.
whole place, a healed place to give other people and ultimately for yourself for the glory of God.
Yeah, and I just want to finish this because I feel like this is good for someone. They're like, "Oh, okay, wait, I got 3. What's the other one?" Like unlearning, refusing the lies, separating from what is toxic and not of God, and what
Mm,
doesn't serve you anymore in that season. But then there's a drawing, there's a
mm,
leaning, a running to. I had to
mm,
run after God. I wanted
mm,
more of him. I didn't have to chase him because he was there, but I just leaned in. I was like, "God,
mm,
more of you and less of me." And
mhm,
that looks like I starting to read the word. That change started to, I wanted to read the word. I became just like a voracious reader around the word. I wanted everything. I was like a kid at a candy store. I learned how to pray, and
mm.
I'm gonna say I learned some good ways and some not so good ways, because we church folk can really complicate prayer.
Yeah.
Ooh, child, we could complicate prayer. And so prayer at its simplest form is a conversation with God. And we
Yeah.
get trapped into volume, we get trapped into length, we get
Mhm.
trapped into word usage. But at the end of the day, it's the most honest and authentic conversation you could have with God. And like a two-way conversation, it's not talk, 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 walk away. It
Yeah.
it's talk, pause, listen.
Mhm. I just think you set someone free right there. I
Mm,
think there's so many people being very hard on themselves that like, I don't know how to pray, or I'm not praying long enough. I don't have the volume. I don't have the charismatic experience in my prayer life. I can never pray in public because I'm not eloquent in my speech. I don't
yeah,
have the proper words to say. And I
mm,
think you said some really key things about um, prayer is a conversation. Prayer
yeah,
is an intimate conversation, it can be.
yeah,
And it's not this, it's really come as you are.
yeah. It is come as you are. For many years after my story doesn't end obviously at my conversion. I went on to do ministry and become ordained and become an elder and a worship leader and all the things. And God was elevating me through the arts. I had started off as a playwright, moved into filmmaking, which kind of like just opened doors for television and media. And it just became this natural sort of like journey. And I grew up in a very Pentecostal. I spent most of my years in a very Pentecostal surrounding, doing the all night prayer, doing the praying with authority. It's all about
Mhm.
exousia. It is power. It's a power church, power, power,
Mhm.
power. And I love that. And that's great. And there's a place for that. And there's no knocking it. For me, I was missing an authenticity. I was so focused on
Mhm.
the presentation, the forward
Mhm.
facing part of that prayer.
Mm.
How is this landing?
Mm.
What's the reaction of people when I'm praying,
Mhm.
when I'm calling down heaven, when
Calling down heaven. I know what you're talking about, girl. I know what you're talking about.
Sorry, I just literally laughed my way out of frame. When when you're pulling down heaven and when you're casting out demons
Mhm.
and when you're taking authority over the kingdom of darkness, and it all sounds like the way we know it to sound like there's a formula. But I wasn't. There was a disconnection. If I can
Mm.
sum it up, there were times, not all the times, but there was times that I just felt like I was shouting at God with
Mm.
no authentic connection. And
Mhm.
when I shifted out of that space and went into a completely different space, just trying to read between lines, just a completely different space,
Yes.
I learned a different approach to prayer. And what
Mm.
happened was something beautiful. I was able to find the balance between the two. I was
Mm.
able to stay in that, understand power and authority and passion, and also
Mm.
find these beautiful intimate moments where it's
Mm.
just simple and
Mm.
silent, and it's just
Mm.
yeah.
It's so good. I think it's just a good reminder. I'm not getting overwhelmed with the performance, but the purpose of prayer,
Mm.
remembering why we pray. And I think,
All right, now you
um,
better come on with that alliteration performance.
yes, I no, but I remember beginning my first years of ministry, and I shared this that I was ashamed to pray in front of my husband even for the first couple of years because I felt if you everyone knows my husband, he's like a word artist, he's an amazing man of God, like he can
Yeah,
preach it, he's a preaching machine, he's a prayer, but I just didn't feel like I had that. I didn't feel like I had that authority,
yeah.
and and I think what it is, I didn't know my own voice
Ooh,
coming. I mean,
set
it took me it took me time to come into my own voice.
yeah,
I knew God's voice, but I didn't have a comfortability with my own voice.
that's good.
And especially when you're in ministry, you become on platforms, and people think they think you have it all together. But we're
Right.
all growing, no matter how long you've been in ministry, 15, 10 years, 5 years. We're all growing in ministry. We're always learning, and there's a
Yes.
pull on us to continue to never arrive
Yeah.
in ministry, because there's always a level of decreasing,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
of
that's so
learning. There's a learning in the decreasing,
yeah.
so he can increase more and get all the glory that he deserves.
Yeah.
Why we're doing this anyways, it's not about us. We're
Yeah.
just a vehicle that he's
Yeah.
chosen. It's an honor and a privilege to
Yeah.
do that. And yeah, I think more of us need to understand. I think the key word you said, authenticity, in our
Authenticity.
in our prayer life. And I think, and my husband says it all the time, volume does not equal power.
Come on. And duration does not equal anointing, because
Come
I
on.
because you prayed for 10 minutes and it was beautiful and I prayed for 30 doesn't mean I'm more anointed than you. It just means I got more words.
Yeah. Yeah.
More words, I
Yeah.
got more wind.
Right, right. And I love how God can use, and we're not knocking volume, passion, length. It's just making sure what it comes down to that you are being authentic and you're checking your motives,
Yeah.
checking the why you are seeking God in that way. And so I just want to go back to a couple things. You talked about obviously abuse, calling. So how do you, after experiencing that, how do you come under authority in a local house, having a pastor? And then how do you get a husband, get a man after being mistreated and
Mm.
having a traumatic experience?
Hmm, that's a good question. Okay, so if anybody that listens, even if it's one person that tracks with me, they already know that I am a Jesus feminist, okay? I'm very independent, I'm all about women rising up in purpose, with their giftings, showing up in their full selves, doing the thing that God
Mm,
has called them to do. I believe that women have a massive role to play in this end time season that we're in, that God is using them tremendously, and that they're not to shrink back. They're to
mm,
run to the front lines. Um, and so I brought a lot of that. I brought a lot of that independence, but I also brought my sort of like I'm every woman was part growing up independence. I literally I'm a latchkey kid. If anyone knows what that is, like from the age of like 5, I had a my house key on a shoelace, and it was like my necklace, and I let myself in. My mom would call me to do homework, call me to take a shower, call me to cook my food. I literally parented myself like for a long time.
mhm,
And
mhm,
that and living on your own, it does something to you, like
mhm.
good and bad. So I didn't need anyone. I was like, all the women are independent.
Yeah.
It was that. But a part of that independence and I'm every woman was because I was so hurt and damaged by men.
Mm,
I had no trust for them. I had a bit of a animosity towards them, especially men of power. There was a
mm,
lot that God had to heal. And again, I just want to say it was authentic love. It was a servant's
mm,
heart that just won me over. My husband is an incredible man of God, and he has healed so many wounds in my life, including my deep,
mm,
deep father wound. Just watching
mm,
him raise our children has healed every part of me. He is everything I am not. And that
mm,
is probably that's the biggest answer there. So whatever
mm,
you think I am, if I'm extroverted, he's not. If I'm loud, he's not. If I'm a lot of words, he's not. He's a deep thinker.
mm,
He will think 3 hours to say 3 words, but those 3 words will shake the room. Where I will
mm.
talk for those 3 hours and just be like, "Okay, I'm gonna let you guys have a bathroom break, and then we'll come back and I'll talk for another 3." But it was the perfect balance, and it was also a God thing.
Mm,
I call me old fashioned. I don't think it's that. I really believe it's biblical. I believe that God has that person set aside for you. And
mm,
when I met him, it was unmistakably um, confirmed by God. It was
mm,
confirmed in my heart. God told me, God told him, and we didn't even share that. And we just watched God unfold the whole journey.
mm.
Yeah.
Powerful,
Yeah.
powerful.
And his name is
Um,
Greg. Shout out Greg. Shout out Greg.
hey, Greg. Yes, one day we got to do a double date sometime.
Yes. Yeah.
That'll be great. So, what brings you joy?
Oh man. It changes season to season. Right now, because of the work that I'm doing, what brings me joy is um seeing women who have been bound, marginalized, silenced,
Mm,
benched,
mm,
be unlocked and loosed into the fullness of their calling. That lights
mm.
me up right now. Women finding their voice. You said that. I want to do a lap and a half. I had to sit down and just saw my hands. I was like, just calm down, Cheryl. That stuff lights me up. Serving the broken lights me up. Being away from the posh and the ritzy and being
Mm,
with the marginalized, the gritty, and the street, that lights me up.
mm,
Um, Serving lights me up. There was a time I would say leading, and I think
mm,
that's a big giveaway of where I was. Leading
mm,
leading and being in the front lit me up, and
mm,
now people will be on a ship and the whole thing's moving, and they're like, "This is amazing." And they're like, "Where's the captain?" And I'm in the back.
mm,
They don't even know who's leading that ship. that is when you get to a place where
Mm,
servanthood has now
mhm,
outweighed your need to lead. And so I love seeing people shine in their gifting.
mm,
I love mentoring. I feel like now I'm at a strategic position where I need, before, what I needed that never came to me. I'm not bitter. I'm just truthful. There,
yeah.
there were not a lot of gatekeepers and mentors and door openers for me. I
Hmm.
everything that I was able to receive and move and grow into, it was God and God alone, and it was won the hard way. And
Mm,
I wanna be the interruption to that. I don't wanna have that
mm,
generationally happen. I wanna open doors. I wanna share
mm,
platforms. I wanna, decrease and watch other people increase. I wanna
mm,
I wanna raise up a generation of warriors. I'm not into patty
mm,
cake, don't call me for that. I don't do girly, don't give me frilly. No offense to anyone. Y'all, everyone's
mhm.
different. But if
Yeah.
you wanna raise up warriors, I'm
Mhm.
your girl. That's the stuff that lights me up right now.
I love it. And you're touching on about opening doors.
Mhm.
I I think we need to do more of that as women and as people of God is gossip in the good way.
Mm.
Drop other people's name but your own name. You know how I always people always try to name drop, especially in the city. I don't know anyone in my city because I'm not from here really.
We spoke
And
about that. Isn't that a blessing? Yeah.
yes. And but we should be name dropping other people in the sense of, hey, you know what? If even speaking engagements come up, I'm not available, but this person would be a great fit. Or you know what, maybe this is not, I don't feel called to this, but you know what, this person might be a great fit and not feel like, oh man, I really want the opportunity. This is about me. This could be my next thing. The audience, I've been waiting for this moment. And it's like
Mhm.
really thinking about the motive and really giving the gift of lift,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. The gift of lift.
the gift of lift.
Listen, I just want to say one thing because I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Everything you're saying is 150% true. We as sisters, we as women in the
Mhm.
kingdom need to always be linking arms and bringing other women into the
Mhm.
room. But here's the problem. Let's acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Mhm.
Misogyny, patriarchy, the boys club, that can be church. That can be church
Mhm.
leadership. Um,
Mhm.
leaves out of, a large table that seats 50, leaves space for 1, 2 women. And so now those 2 empty chairs are now soon to be filled, and there are 55 qualified, Chantal,
Mhm.
degreed, like educated up, passionate, called women vying. I'm going to say vying, but it ends up becoming fighting for those
Mm.
spots. So it's not that we've turned on each other because initially there's hatred and jealousy,
Yeah.
because the system that has been created by men has not left enough room for women to feel like they can show up. They're now pitting against each other for the 1 or 2 spots. So we need to change something there. We need to change the game of how we do church. It's time
Mhm.
that we acknowledge women as leaders, as as equally called and mantled and gifted and have the same trajectory of call. And it's time that we make space for voices so that there are more seats at the table. And here's what I say. While y'all are fighting for the 2 seats, I'm going to grab the next 45 women and we're going to go build another table over here.
Mhm.
We're just going to build another table and we're going to build another house and we're going to make room for each other over here because
Mhm.
we're not going to join that dogfight.
Mhm. And it shouldn't be that way.
I refuse to do that. Women are not my competition. They are my
Co-laborers.
co-laborers, co-conspirators. They're that's what they are. They're my squad. Yeah.
It's a sad place. But people like you making room for other women, I think that is changing way that women's ministry looks like. That
Yeah.
we're not just getting the role of children's director. We're not going to go deep into that, but we're not just getting the role of just speaking to
Or worship
s-
leader, because that's the only time we can touch a mic, right?
Right. But God has a big call, a deep call on the women of God,
Yes.
and women in general. I want to say women in general. There's a big in any sector. It doesn't even have to be in ministry, because I think I worked in corporate before, and it has its own beasts in that as well. So it's not just ministry, but I think in the world we are learning how to work with women, give them a space at the seat.
Yeah.
And so we pray that the next generation, I hope my little girl will not have to, I'm fighting for things that she doesn't have to fight for, that she can speak
Mm.
up and know her voice. From a 7-year-old right now, and she knows her voice. Trust me, right now. We've done a lot of work, but just learning that there's opportunities that she has that as her mom might not have had, or even her grandparents or grandmother might not have had. And so it's so good to see what you're doing with the Brave Women and the Women Speak Collective and all this stuff. These are great opportunities. And my last question for you is, what would you have told if you can go back and tell your teenage self, what would it be?
If I can go back and tell myself, what would it be? I think I would start by saying that you are enough, Cheryl,
Mm,
as you are. Um, that God loves the flawed, rough, tough edges of you.
mm,
That he has so much in store for you. You don't need to conform or look or pattern yourself after anyone
mm,
else. He has a unique path carved out for you.
mm,
And so, like you say, like learn your voice, know your voice, trust your gifting, be settled in that. You don't have to pray, sound, lead, whatever, like
mm,
anyone else. God
mm,
loves you as you are. In fact, he wants you. The reason he wants to use you in this massive way is because
mm,
you can do it in a way that no one else can, in that authentic
mm,
self. And I think the last thing I'll say, which is really important, is that you can trust women.
mm.
You can trust women. They're when you surrender your life over to God and you pray for a divine hand-picked group of sisters, they will come.
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
will reteach and they will show you what true sisterhood is, where you feel safe, where you know that when you leave the room, you are not up for conversation.
mm,
They are putting your name, as you said, in that
mm,
beautiful, like godly gossip way. They're putting your name forward.
mhm,
That you're not spending half of your weekend trying to pull knives out of your back. And there is a place where you can trust women wholeheartedly, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
mm. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Those are amazing. I think we all want a part of that. And a lot of times we don't see it in our young age,
Mm,
but now just to see where God's brought you to and where you've come,
amen.
the power of God. Um, I am blown away. Thank you for being authentic. Thank you
Yeah,
for being raw, relevant, and just real. We need more real women
yeah.
sharing their story. Um, I actually have one more question to ask.
Let's
I'm just
let's move forward. It's
have
okay.
you, yeah, have you, with your story, were you always honest with your children with your story? Did you sanitize your story? Were you like slowly sharing your story with the kids? Obviously, you're on platforms now sharing, but how was that having children?
Yeah, I did sanitize for a minute, and even to this day, when I speak and preach, I use the fun analogy of me being a filmmaker, and so I say, I read the room, and I want to tell any minister to do that, read the room, and so I have like
Mm,
a PG version, I have like the adult version, the restricted
yes.
version, and so, but I didn't hide the truth for too long. I wanted my kids to know, and how you share your story can make or break a moment, and I wanted to build them
Mm,
up in their faith, not
mm,
turn them away from church or church people. And so I
mm.
I I said my story in a redemptive way, and it was more of like,
Great.
look what God has done. And so
Mm,
it's been my testimony that has really drawn them close to God, knowing, and I've driven them around, I've showed them the streets where I was, I've shown them where my beginnings are, and it's just amazing for them
mm.
to track and see the hand of God in my life. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Can
you
I
for
can I
sharing.
can I just invite people, women that are listening that
Yeah.
are maybe,
Yeah.
moved, that want to find their people, their tribe, because being
Yes.
a female leader is lonely.
Yeah. Do it.
Maybe check out Women Speaker Collective. That is the organization I'm proud to be the director of right now. It's www.womenspeakers with an S collective.com. Join us. You can sit with us. You can work with us. We love you. We love you already.
Oh, great. And if you have not already, please follow Cheryl Nembhard on her Instagram, on her Facebook, and then she'll have a bunch of other links that you can follow her on. She has a lot of resources and just keep you up to date what's going on with you. And so, again, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for being on the show. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
Chantal.
it. And we'll talk backstage. Hey guys, oh my word. I am just full. I'm full. I love that the realness that Shield shared, the honesty. I think there's parts of her story that really I resonated with from my own experience, my own story. I hope that you did as well. And so thank you again. Continue to subscribe if you have not. Like my page. Follow me on social media at Chantal Beresford. And I cannot wait for next week. I have another great episode that's going to drop next week. And so check us out when you are free.